Hello and welcome to Niche Snacks. Today we're going to be doing a deck showcase and a little bit of an edit, but it's going to be different than ones we've done in the past. So today we've got a partner pairing, and I'm going to swap out one of the partners, and it's going to add a third color into the deck. So the original partner pairing for the deck is Ich-Tekik Salvage Splicer. He's a 1/1 for 4 and a green. And when he enters the battlefield, you make a 3/3 colorless golem artifact creature token. And whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on Ich-Tekik and a +1/+1 counter on each golem you control. And ever since I saw Ich-Tekik, I always thought he was really cool. A green artifact-based deck is kind of, out of the color pie of what he normally does, or what that color normally does. And I don't know, I just thought it was really interesting. I have this deck all built already, right? It's one of my older decks. And the old partner is Rubec, Architect of Ascension. He's a 3/4 for 3 and a white. And he says artifacts you control have protection from each converted mana cost among artifacts you control. So he makes it easy to swing with our tokens that we make off Ich-Tekik. Especially since they are unblockable by our opponent's tokens. So, if they have an army of tokens, we can just, soar right through them. The problem that I've run into with Rubec is he can be a bit of a non-bow. It makes it harder for us to target our tokens and artifacts with other things. So, like if I have an equipment or something, I won't be able to equip that equipment to one of our artifacts. So I'd have to throw it on Ich-Tekik or Rubec himself. And that's not really how I like to play this deck. So I've kind of wanted to switch him out for a while, and today we're going to do that. And we're going to switch him out with Bruse Tarl, Boorish Herder. It's a 3/3 for 2, a red and a white. And when he enters the battlefield or attacks, target creature we control gains double strike and lifelink until end of turn. Double strike and lifelink is pretty sweet, don't get me wrong. He doesn't do as much as Rubec does in letting us get through, but he adds that third color of red. So we're going to go ahead and swap him out right now. And I think Rubec is probably not going to make the cut for the deck anyway, so let's kind of go through the deck and you can see how it works, and then we'll go over what I want to take out and what I want to put in. So for creatures, we've got a few that make artifacts to put into the graveyard, like Tireless Provisioner. It's a 3/2 for 2 and a green. He has Landfall, so whenever land enters the battlefield under our control, we'll create a food token or a treasure token. Treasure tokens are notably artifacts going to our graveyard when we use them to create mana, so it'll trigger Ich-Tekik and put a +1/+1 counter on himself and all of our artifacts, or all of our golems. Same thing with Burnished Heart. We'll have to sacrifice him to go get 2 basics and put him into play tapped. Sacrificing him puts him in our graveyard. He's an artifact, it'll trigger Ich-Tekik. We've also got a couple creatures that will blink Ich-Tekik to make more tokens. There's also, as you'll see, other cards that make golems when they enter play. So things like Distinguished Conjurer. He is a 1/2 for 1 and a white. And whenever a creature enters the battlefield under our control, we gain a life, which is cool. Not really what he's in the deck for, but we can pay 4 and a white and tap him to exile another creature we control and then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. So he can flicker Ich-Tekik or whatever, put it back into play, trigger his ETB trigger, make us another token. We have Emil the Blessed. It's a 4/4 for 2 and double white. We can pay 3 mana and exile another creature we control and then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. So same thing, flicker Ich-Tekik or whatever. And then we have another trigger. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under our control, you can pay a hybrid green-white. And if we do, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. If it's a unicorn, it gets 2 1/1 counters instead. But that part, I'm not really worried about. I'd rather just be flickering things, not paying extra mana to make the things that come into play a little bit bigger. So now we've got creatures that make golems when they enter the battlefield. So they're kind of like Ich-Tekik, but they also have other effects with golems too. First up, we've got Blade Splicer. It's a 1/1 for 2 and a white. And when Blade Splicer enters the battlefield, you make a 3/3 colorless golem artifact creature token, and golems we control have first strike. So it makes our golems a little bit better that way. Kind of like slivers, where all these are going to kind of build off of each other. Got Master Splicer, so 1/1 for 3 and a white, and when it enters the battlefield, you make a 3/3 golem, and golem creatures we control get +1/+1. It's pretty good. Got Vital Splicer, as a 1/1 for 3 and a green, and when it enters the battlefield, you make a 3/3 golem. I hope you're seeing a trend. And we can pay 1 to regenerate target golem we control. Got Sensor Splicer, a 1/1 for 4 and a white. When it enters, we make a 3/3 golem, and golem creatures we control have vigilance. We got a Dark Steel Splicer. It's a 1/1 for 6 and a white, and when it enters, or another non-token Phyrexian enters, which I think this is the only Phyrexian, so that part's kind of whatever, we make X 3/3 colorless Phyrexian golems, where X is the number of opponents we have, and it makes our golems indestructible. And lastly, we've got Maul Splicer, and when it enters the battlefield, we make 2 3/3 colorless golems, and golem creatures we control have trample. So all of these kind of build on each other and make our golems a little bit better and give them a couple different abilities. So those are our creatures that make golems when they come into play, and now we have golem creatures themselves. So first up, we've got Gingerbrute. It's a 1/1 for 1 with haste. He's a food golem. You can pay 1, and he can't be blocked this turn except by creatures with haste. Then you can pay 2, tap him, sacrifice it, and you gain 3 life because he's a food. But he's also a golem, he has haste, and he has a way to make himself unblockable. So if we put a bunch of 1/1 counters on him with Ich-Tekik, which, that's kind of the whole point of the deck, it makes it a lot easier for him to get in and smack someone. We've got a Metallic Mimic, which doesn't say golem on the card, but he's a 2/1 for 2. When he enters the battlefield, we choose a creature type. He is the chosen type in addition to his other types, and each other creature you control of the chosen type enters the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter on it. So he can be a golem. The other fun creature type to pick in this deck is Artificer, because all of these creatures that make golems are artificers, along with Ich-Tekik. But usually he's just a golem. Well, just a golem. Golems are pretty dope in this deck. We've also got a Soulless Jailer. He's a 0/4 for 2 mana. He's a Phyrexian golem. Oh, he has another Phyrexian. Sweet. So that'll trigger Darksteel Splicer. And he says, permanent cards in graveyards can't enter the battlefield, and players can't cast non-creature spells from graveyards or exile. So, he's mostly in there because he's a golem. He's also a bit of a stacks piece. It can kind of disrupt our opponents and what they're doing and let us, build up. And he's a 0/4, but he doesn't have Defender or anything like that, so we can still put a bunch of 1/1 counters on him and swing in. We've also got Dune Mover. He's a 2/1 for 2 mana. Phyrexian golem, another Phyrexian, so that's good. He has Toxic 1, so players dealt combat damage by this creature also get a poison counter. We're not really looking to poison counter or proliferate or anything like that, so that part doesn't really matter. And he also says, when Dune Mover enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, shuffle, and put that card on top. So he can fix our mana a little bit if we're missing a land, especially early on. He's really nice, to guarantee that land drop, so we always have more and more mana. It is also a May effect, so if it's late in the game and we really don't, we've already got 12 mana on the field and we don't want to go get another land, we don't have to, and then he's just another body. Next up, we've got a Tough Cookie. He's a 2/2 for 1 and green. It's a food golem. When he enters the battlefield, we make a food token, so that's another artifact that we can send to the graveyard to trigger Ich-Tekik. And then we can also pay 2 and a green, and target non-creature artifact we control becomes a 4/4 artifact creature until end of turn, so we can turn our food tokens into creatures. They're not golems, which kind of sucks, but whatever. And then he has the food text of pay 2, tap, sacrifice Tough Cookie, gain 3 life. Next up, we've got a Solemn Simulacrum. It's a 2/2 for 4. If you don't know what Solemn does, you haven't been playing Commander for very long. When he enters the battlefield, you search your library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield, tap, and shuffle, and when Solemn dies, you can draw a card. But he's also a golem, so he can stick around, get huge with Ich-Tekik. Usually Solemn is just indexed to come into play, ramp them a little bit, and then draw a card when he dies later, so he's a good blocker. In our deck, Solemn can be a huge beater, so it's kind of fun with that. Next up, we've got a Lodestone Golem. It's a 5/3 for 4 mana. He says non-artifact spells cost 1 more to cast. So another stacks piece. He makes all of ours and our opponents non-artifact spells cost 1 more. So he's going to make it harder for our opponents to play spells. We have a ton of artifacts in the deck, so he's not going to hinder us too much. It can make some of our splicers and stuff cost a little bit more, and some of them are pretty expensive, but not really worried about that, especially in a green deck. We've got plenty of ramp. We'll be all right. We've got Arcbound Reclaimer. He's a 0/0 for 4. We can remove a +1/+1 counter from Arcbound Reclaimer to put an artifact card from our graveyard on top of our library, so kind of pseudo recursion. And he has Modular 2, so he comes into play with 2 +1/+1 counters. and when it's put into the graveyard, you can put its +1/+1 counters on target artifact creature. So we can put more +1/+1 counters on them with Ich-Tekik. So we can continue to remove the 1/1 counters to put artifacts back on top of our library, so we have more gas to draw into. And then say we don't have any artifacts in our graveyard to put on top, we can just leave the 1/1 counters on him, and when he dies, those counters will get shifted to another artifact creature if one is still around. Next up, we've got a Precursor Golem. It's a 3/3 for 5 mana. When he enters the battlefield, you make 2 3/3 colorless golem artifact creature tokens, and whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell that targets only a single golem, that player copies the spell for each other golem that spell could target. Each copy targets a different one of those golems. So, a bit of a double-edged sword here. Precursor Golem can make it so our buff spells and single target spells that we use go to all of our golems and make them humongous or huge or really cool or whatever. But that also works for our opponents. So say our opponents have a Path to Exile. They can Path to Exile every single golem we have. But a lot of times in Commander, the single target spells have some sort of drawback to them in a way. Some of them cost life to use. Some of them, like Path to Exile or Surge to Plowshares, are going to gain us something, either a land or some life or something like that. So a lot of times, especially in Commander, single target spells have some sort of drawback for the opponent, and it's okay that it only happens once. Like, yeah, I'll trade you your ginormous creature for a basic land or something like that. But if they have to do it to 6 or 7 creatures, it's a little bit worse for them, and it puts us ahead and helps us to rebuild a little bit. So can be a bit of a double-edged sword, but for the most part, I haven't found Precursor Golem to be anything but awesome. Next up, we have a Bronze Guardian. It's a X5 creature for 4 and a white. He has Double Strike and Ward 2, so when this creature becomes the target of spell or an ability an opponent controls, you counter it unless that player pays 2 mana. He gives other artifacts we control Ward 2, which is awesome, and his power is equal to the number of artifacts we control. He's also a golem, which is super cool. He has Double Strike, and his front is huge, so he's going to swing for a lot of damage most of the time, and protect all of our artifacts for the most part. You've got a Darksteel Sentinel. He's a 3/3 for 6 mana. He has Flash, so we can cast him anytime we can cast an instant. He's got Vigilance, and he's indestructible. And he's a golem, so he's just a huge beater golem that we can use to block because he's indestructible, and he has Vigilance, so he's not going to tap when he attacks. And he's going to get huge off Ich-Tekik. We've got a Triplicate Titan, which is a 9/9 for 9 mana. He has Flying, Vigilance, and Trample. And when he dies, we're going to create a 3/3 colorless golem artifact creature token with Flying, a 3/3 colorless golem artifact creature token with Vigilance, and a 3/3 colorless golem artifact creature token with Trample. So he's a huge golem already with a bunch of cool keywords, and when he dies, he splits off and all of his keywords go to other 3/3 golems. So kind of like an even bigger... what's the worm? The worm, it's a 6/6 for 6, and when it dies, it makes a 3/3 with lifelink and a 3/3 with Death Touch. Worm. Whatever. Last but not least, we've got Phyrexian Triniform. It's a 9/9 for 9. He's a Phyrexian Golem. Phyrexian, another one. And when he dies, you make 3 3/3 colorless Phyrexian Golem artifact creature tokens, and he has Encore for 12 mana. So we exile this card from our graveyard, and for each opponent, we create a token that's copy that attacks that opponent this turn. If able, they gain haste, sacrifice him at the beginning of the next end step, activate only as a sorcery. So he's huge. He's a 9/9. When he dies, he makes 3 golems, which is cool. And then we can encore him for 12. So if we still have 3 opponents, we're going to make 3 copies of this dude, and then we sacrifice them at the end step, and they're going to each make 3 more. So potentially 12 golems out of this one dude. Pretty good. Pretty sweet. Costs a lot of mana, though. And that is it for all of our golems. Next, we're going to go through some instants. We have a couple more flicker effects with Ephemerate and Cloud Shift. Both of them are going to exile a creature we control and then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control, specifically Cloud Shift returns it to the battlefield under our control. We're not threatening stuff and flickering it back into play under our control, which is kind of a fun thing to do, but not what the deck does. So both of them are meant to flicker our Artificers and Ich-Tekik to make more Golems. The Ephemerate also has Rebound, so when we cast it from our hand, we exile it as it resolves, and at the beginning of our next upkeep, you can cast the Ephemerate from exile without paying its mana cost. So it's another flicker effect. Notably, if you flicker something on that same turn, it regains Summoning Sickness, so if it doesn't have haste, we won't be able to attack with it. We've got some removal at instant speed with Sundering Growth. It destroys target artifact or enchantment, and then you populate. So we're going to make a token that's a copy of a creature token that we control, so another Golem creator. We've got Unexpectedly Absent. It's a instant for 2 white and X. We put target non-land permanent into its owner's library beneath the top X cards of that library. So we can stuff a problem permanent into someone's library and put it, however many cards deep if we want, or just put it on top for 2 mana to get it out of the way for us. Not the best removal spell in Casual, but it's there. It might get pulled out when we add red in. Chaos Warp's probably a little bit better than that. A Beast Within and a Generous Gift. Both of them do pretty much the exact same thing, which is destroying a permanent, and then its controller makes a 3/3 creature token. A Beast with Beast Within and an Elephant with Generous Gift. They both serve the same purpose. They both get rid of a problem permanent that our opponents have, like if we can't get through it. I know recently I've had trouble with people playing Glacial Chasm and making it impossible for me to attack them and win. So Beast Within and Generous Gift both help with that problem. They're both great for that particular issue. Next up, we're going to go over some ways to prevent our creatures from dying. So we have a couple instant speed ways to give our creatures indestructible. We've got Inspiring Call. So we'll draw a card for each creature we control with a +1/+1 counter on it, which will be hopefully at least a couple Golems and Ich-Tekik. And then those creatures gain indestructible till end of turn. So it's only going to save our creatures with +1/+1 counters on it, but those are the ones that we kind of want to keep around anyway. Everything else can go away, and that's not a terrible thing. And then along the same lines, we've got Rootborn Defenses. So we populate, so we'll make a token that's a copy of a creature token we control, and then creatures we control gain indestructible till end of turn. So same thing, will kind of save us from some board wipes and stuff like that, and keep our creatures around so they can keep on punching. Oh, and also in the same vein, we've got Akroma's Will, which can do a lot of stuff. It costs 3 and a white, and we'll choose one, and if we control a commander as we cast a spell, we can choose both. And the whole point of the deck is to get Ich-Tekik into play and trigger him a bunch of times, so we're going to have Ich-Tekik in play, hopefully. Both modes, the first one says, creatures you control gain flying, vigilance, and double strike till end of turn, which is pretty cool. It's a way for us to get in and punch with our big creatures. It gives them a little bit of evasion with flying. And then the second part says, creatures you control gain lifelink, indestructible, and protection from all colors until end of turn. So that'll save them from taking a bunch of damage and dying. It'll save them from a wrath. It'll save them from all but a few sweepers. So pretty good card for us. For sorceries, we've also got Full Flowering. It's double X and a green. It's a sorcery, populate X times. So it's a way for us to flood the board with more golden tokens. We got a bit of a ramp package with instants and sorceries with a Cultivate, a Rampant Growth, and Harrow. All of those go get us basic lands in some form or another. Pretty basic commander stuff right there, especially for green. For draw spells, we've got a Harmonize, which is 2 and 2 green, and it'll draw us 3 cards, which is pretty great, especially in a non-blue deck. Way to draw cards like that, it's always good. And Shamanic Revelation, which will draw us a card for each creature we control, and then we'll gain 4 life for each creature we control with power 4 or greater. Most of our golems, I know they come in as 3/3s, but they should be getting bigger with Ich-Tekik. So that should gain us some life if we need it, but it's mostly there to draw us some cards. We've got some artifact ramp with Soul Ring, Wayfarer's Bauble, Liquid Metal Torque, Selesnya Signet, Arcane Signet, Talisman of Unity, and the Great Henge. Great Henge probably being the most interesting of all of those. Mostly they all just make mana. The Liquid Metal Torque can tap to turn a non-land permanent into an artifact. It can be useful in some cases, especially Maybe if a creature is going to the graveyard, we can turn it into an artifact with a liquid metal torque and then trigger Ich-Tekik to put our 1/1 counters on things. So it can do a little bit more than just being a mana rock. The Wayfarer's Bauble sacrifices itself, which will trigger Ich-Tekik. And then the Great Henge, it costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures we control, which should be, I mean, they can get pretty big. I've made some pretty massive golems with this deck before. You can tap it to add 2 green and you gain 2 life. And whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under our control, we put a 1/1 counter on it and draw a card. So we're not going to draw a bunch of cards off of making tokens, which kind of sucks, but we do have plenty of other non-token creatures that we want to cast and should be able to draw cards off of it pretty easily. Now we've got some non-mana producing artifacts. The Ozolith is a great choice for this deck. It's an artifact that costs 1 mana, and whenever a creature we control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, you put those counters on the Ozolith. And at the beginning of combat on our turn, if the Ozolith has counters on it, you can move all of those counters from the Ozolith onto target creature. So kind of a fun thing with the Ozolith, I know we've only got 1 creature with modular in the deck, but they work independently. I'm pretty sure this is how this works. I will double check it and make sure. But with the Ozolith, it's not a replacement effect. So what happens is when the Arcbound Reclaimer goes to the graveyard, if it had 1/1 counters on it, we put that many 1/1 counters on the Ozolith. But it's not like we're actually taking the counters off of this card and putting them onto the Ozolith. The creature's already left play, so those counters are gone. So it's generating new counters to put on the Ozolith, and then the Arcbound Reclaimer trigger will happen, so when it dies and goes to the graveyard, we can still move the same number of counters from the Arcbound Reclaimer onto another creature and also put those counters on the Ozolith. And if that's wrong, I'm going to cut out this whole fucking part and you'll never hear me say that. We've also got, for equipment, Behemoth Sledge. It's 1, a green, and a white. It's artifact equipment. The equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has lifelink and trample, and it has equip cost of 3. We make huge tokens. Giving them trample is awesome. Lifelink is just a bonus, especially with Bruised Taro now giving them double strike and lifelink, which lifelink doesn't stack anymore, which whatever, it used to if you were old and remember that. But trample's the big reason, and then double strike off the Bruised Taro is pretty sick with trample. And then we've got a Conjurer's Closet. So at the beginning of our end step, we can exile target creature we control and then return that to the battlefield under our control. Just another way to flicker Ich-Tekik or another Artificer to make more golems. And lastly, we have a Bootlegger Stash. This card is a fucking all-star. It costs 5 and a green. It's an artifact. Lands you control have tap, create a treasure token. So all of our lands are going to be able to tap to produce a treasure token, so we can build up mana if we don't need to use all of our mana in a turn. And it's also going to create treasure tokens, which sacrifice themselves, and it's going to trigger Ich-Tekik to give us more 1/1 counters. So all of our lands are going to buff our creatures and make mana, and potentially ramp us if we don't need to use that mana for something right away. The card is awesome. I love it. It makes every game go super smooth for us if we have it out. Now we get to go into our enchantments. There's only a couple, well, there's 4 in the deck so far. First, we've got Tempered Steel. It's 1 and 2 white. It says artifact creatures we control get +2/+2. So it makes all of our golem tokens bigger. Any other artifact creatures we have also get bigger. And then Inspiring Leader. It's commander creatures you own have creature tokens you control get +2/+2. So if we have Ich-Tekik in play, which we want to have Ich-Tekik in play, he's going to give all of the golem tokens +2/+2. And then if we also have Bruised Taro in play, he's another commander creature that we own, so he'll give our tokens an additional +2/+2. So potentially with both of these in play, we can make our golems +4/+4 off of 1 enchantment, which is pretty cool. And then we've got a Smothering Tithe. It's 3 and a white. Whenever an opponent draws a card, that player may pay 2 mana. If the player doesn't, you create a treasure token. So more treasure token generation to trigger Ich-Tekik to make our creatures bigger. Pretty good. Most of the time, nobody pays the 2. especially if they're drawing multiple cards a turn, you're gonna generate treasure tokens off of the Smothering Tithe, guaranteed. And lastly, we've got a Primal Vigor. It costs 4 and a green. It says if one or more tokens we put onto the battlefield, twice that many of those tokens are put onto the battlefield instead, and if one or more +1/+1 counters will be placed on a creature, twice that many +1/+1 counters are placed on that creature instead. So Primal Vigor can also be a bit of a double-edged sword. It's not just our stuff that it counts for everybody. So if anybody makes any tokens at all, it's going to double the number of tokens they make. And if anybody puts +1/+1 counters on any creature, it's going to double the number of +1/+1 counters that are put on that creature. We hopefully will be able to abuse Primal Vigor better than our opponents will be. That's not always the case. Sometimes somebody's playing a token deck, and if we slam Primal Vigor down, not really paying attention, they're going to be able to pull away with it instead of us. So we just have to be a little bit careful with it there. Otherwise, card's an all-star. It's great. It does everything we want it to do. Everything we are trying to do, it doubles that. So it's phenomenal. So that is basically the deck other than the lands and the stuff that I would like to take out. So right away, I've identified 10 cards that I think we can pull out that are just kind of filler-ish cards. So firstly, we're going to take out Rite of Harmony. It's a green and a white instant. Whenever a creature or enchantment enters the battlefield under your control this turn, you can draw a card and it has flashback for 2 and green and a white. The reason it's coming out, it's a one-time effect. It doesn't do a whole lot in other turns. Like, yeah, I know you can flash it back and all that stuff, and if we have a big turn that we want to prep and then make a bunch of tokens, it just requires a lot of setup. I think that's really what it is. Rite of Harmony requires a lot of setup, and you have to really make sure that you're casting it at the right time and doing the right thing with it, and sometimes that can be difficult to do. And it's going to be a 2 mana that we have to set up and then cast another big spell to make more tokens and draw more cards and stuff. It's just, I don't think, worth the slot for us right now, especially with other ways that we have to draw cards. Also going to take out Breath of Life, which is 3 and a white, and it lets us reanimate a creature card from our graveyard. Can be good, especially with some of the big fatty golems or things that make golems. Some of the artificers that make multiple golems, if they die, most of them are all 1/1s. So when they die and we can reanimate them with Breath of Life, it's not bad. But I think there's better cards that we could be playing. Next, we've got a Requisition Raid. It's one of the spree cards from Thunder Junction. It costs a white and plus. So with 1 white mana, we can add a colorless and destroy target artifact. For another colorless, we can destroy target enchantment. And for another colorless, we can put a +1/+1 counter on each creature target player controls. So we can put 1/1 counters on all of our creatures with it, and it's some removal. It's not a bad card. I just don't like the fact that it's a sorcery, and with us adding red in, I think there's better removal spells than that. I'm also taking out some ramp, which is just going to be replaced with other ramp that includes red. So I had a Marble Diamond and a Moss Diamond, which both come into play tapped, and then tap for a green or a white. And then a Llanowar Elves, which is a 1/1 creature that taps for a green. I think all of those can come out, and we can find some better ramp stuff. Also, along the lines of ramp, we've got a Selesnya Locket, which is a 3-drop artifact that can tap for a green or a white. And then we can also pay 4 hybrid green-white and tap it and sacrifice it and draw 2 cards. So it is nice that it's an artifact that we can sacrifice off to draw more cards and trigger Ich-Tekik because it's an artifact that goes to the graveyard. But it costs a lot of mana to do that, and with adding a 3rd color into the deck, it's not great for us. We've also got a Mimic Vat, which is a 3-drop artifact. It has imprint, so whenever a non-token creature dies, you can exile that card, and if you do, return each other card exiled with Mimic Vat into its owner's graveyard. And then you can pay 3 and tap it and create a token that's a copy of the card exiled with Mimic Vat. It gains haste and exile it at the beginning of the next end step. So it's pretty good for our artificers. If they die, they can go under the Mimic Vat, and then we can pay 3 and tap the Mimic Vat and create a token that's a copy of it, which will also create more Golem tokens. Mimic Vat might actually stay in the deck, not sure. The reason why I think it should come out is because we're not doing anything that sacrifices creatures, so we can't really control when our creatures die. And if we have a Mimic Vat out and our opponents see that, they could easily just, choose to Path to Exile one of our 1/1s or something, instead of killing it and then not letting us put it under the Mimic Vat that way. I just don't like not being able to control when something dies with something that needs something to die, if that makes sense. Like, I don't want to give our opponents control over what we do with our cards. That is not something I'm a fan of. Not saying Mimic Vat is a bad card or anything like that. It just doesn't quite fit what we're doing. We've also got a Soul Foundry. 4 mana artifact, has imprint, so when it enters the battlefield, we can exile the creature card from our hand, and then we can pay X and tap it and create a token that's a copy of the exiled card. X is the converted mana cost of that card. Kind of goes along the same lines of Mimic Vat. What I don't like about Soul Foundry is it's a 4-drop artifact that we then have to pump more mana into to make a thing, especially since a lot of the stuff we want to make with the Soul Foundry would be the Splicers, which are high mana cost cards that we have to pay for and tap the Soul Foundry to do it. So it's a big mana investment for the Soul Foundry to work, and it has the potential to come into play, exile a cool card out of our hand, and then have our opponents blow it up before we can even activate it. That part kind of sucks. That's a 2-for-1 and not in our favor, which I'm not a huge fan of. And then lastly, we have the Chaos Wand, which is a 3-drop artifact that we can pay 4 and tap, and then target opponent exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile an instant or sorcery card. We can cast that card without paying its mana cost, and then put the exiled cards that weren't cast this way onto the bottom of that library in a random order. Chaos Wand is a really cool card, don't get me wrong. It just is not what we're doing with Ich-Tekik, right? We want to make artifact tokens, golems specifically, put artifacts into our graveyard, which this doesn't do any of those things. Is it a cool card? Yes. Is it worth a slot in this deck? Maybe if we didn't have anything better to put in, which we are gonna now because we're adding in a 3rd color. So that's where I think Chaos Wand gets the boot. For the lands, I think what we're gonna do is we might replace some basics with some basics, and then I want to pull out all of the lands that just come into play tapped. Probably leave in High Market as a land because we can tap it and sacrifice a creature, and when we do, we gain 1 life. It's a way for us to sacrifice artifact creatures if we need to potentially trigger Ich-Tekik and make our other stuff bigger. Maybe if we're swinging in with a group of creatures and one thing gets blocked, but we really need that extra damage from the extra +1/+1 counters, we can sack it off to High Market. Just a way to do something like that. Okay. I like to really limit the number of lands that come into play tapped, so I think I'm going to pull out all of the ones that come into play tapped for this deck. I also don't really have any reason to run the cycling lands in this deck. There's no reason for lands to go to the graveyard or anything like that. The extra card draw off of it, replacing itself late game, I'm not sure is actually worth it for us right now. I also am going to take out War Room. It is a land that can tap for a colorless, and you can pay 3 and tap it, and you pay life equal to the number of colors in your commander's color identity and draw a card. So this would be a tap 3 mana and it, so 4 mana, and pay 3 life to draw 1 card. Not great. I like War Room in 0 to 2 color decks. That's when War Room really shines, in my opinion. Once you get to 3, 4, and 5, it's really not worth it. It's too much life for a single card. So now let's go over some cards that I want to add in. Here is some non-basic lands that just add multiple colors. So we'll be taking some out and putting some in. Nothing too spicy. The only thing that we're really adding in that's semi-interesting is these ones that come into play tapped and scry, the temples. So I've got all 3 temples for this color combo, which is fun. Those will probably be the only tapped lands that I try to play for the deck. So first thing I want to add into this deck, and what I've kind of been talking about in previous videos before too, is more card draw. It seems to be a big thing that most decks that I see are missing. Really need more card draw to smooth out your deck and make sure that you're hitting their land drops and finding more gas to play. We don't have any card draw in the command zone, which means that we need more card draw in the deck. So first card I pulled out was Colossal Majesty. It's 2 and a green, it's an enchantment, and at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you draw a card. Most of our golems are going to be bigger than 4. Ich-Tekik is probably going to get bigger than a 4 pretty easily. So I figure we're going to draw a card on this pretty consistently. It's going to suck when we get board wiped and we don't have a way to save ourselves and we don't draw a card off the Colossal Majesty because it just is kind of a useless card at that point. It only draws us 1 card on an upkeep, which is good. An extra card draw every turn will help, smooth things out for us. The problem that I have with this card is it's not a guarantee. So even things like Phyrexian Arena, even though they lose us a life, it's still guaranteed we're going to draw that card as long as the enchantment's on the battlefield. But our opponents can shut off Colossal Majesty by just getting rid of our creatures, which kind of sucks, but I still think it's a pretty good card. Next, we've got a Growing Rites of Itlamok. It's a legendary enchantment for 2 and a green, and when it enters the battlefield, we look at the top 4 cards of our library. We can reveal a creature card from among them and put it into our hand, and the rest on the bottom of our library in any order. And at the beginning of our end step, if we control 4 or more creatures, we transform Growing Rites of Itlamok. And the backside is pretty sweet, because it's a land that can tap for a green mana, or we can tap it to add a green mana for each creature we control. So it's a Gaia's Cradle, and that card's really expensive for the reason that it's really good. So Growing Rites is pretty good. It's lets us get more creatures into our hand to cast, and then we're going to flip it pretty consistently because we're going to be making golem tokens, right? So pretty consistently we're going to have more than 4 creatures in the battlefield, especially since we have 2 commanders. So that's 2 cards pretty much guaranteed right there, and one of our commanders makes a creature when it comes into play, so that's 3 creatures if we're just casting our commanders. So we only need 1 more, and hopefully the Growing Rites can find us that 1 more creature card to put into play to flip them. For enchantments, we've got an Elemental Bond, which is whenever a creature with power 3 or greater enters the battlefield under our control, we draw a card. We're making 3/3 golems. This is going to trigger every time you make a 3/3 golem and draw us a card. Turning all of our golems into card draw is really fucking good. We've also got a Momentous Fall. It's an instant for 2 and 2 green, and as an additional cost to cast this spell, we sacrifice a creature, and we draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power, and then we gain life equal to its toughness. So it's a way for us to sacrifice those big 9/9 golems like Titan Triplicate and what's the other golem? Phyrexian Triniform, that was the other one. Triplicate Titan and Phyrexian Triniform. So we can sack them off to the Momentous Fall. They're going to make golems when they die. This is going to gain us a buttload of life. If Ich-Tekik is in play and those cards have +1/+1 counters on them, it's going to be even bigger. And creatures with +1/+1 counters on them dying could be good for us as well, right? With like the Ozolith, things like that. So I figure Momentous Fall is probably worth a slot. We've also got a Lochiel Clockwork Soldier. It's a 2/4 for 2 and a white. It prevents all combat damage that would be dealt to attacking artifact creatures we control, which is going to be most of our creatures that are going to be attacking. And whenever 1 or more artifact creatures enter the battlefield under your control, you draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. So it's a way for us to draw an additional card every turn. It's pretty unlikely that we're going to be making any artifacts or putting any artifacts into play on our opponent's turns. So this is, again, just kind of going to be a 3 mana, draw an extra card every turn cycle. Kind of like the Colossal Majesty. And again, it's not guaranteed just because we're not always going to be able to put an artifact into play. We're going to try, but it's not always a guarantee that that's something that we're going to be able to do. And then last, for extra card draw, I have a proxy of the One Ring. I don't actually own a real The One Ring. It's really expensive and I'm broke as hell. So One Ring is a 4-drop legendary artifact. It's indestructible. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you gain protection from everything until your next turn. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life for each burden counter on the One Ring. And you can tap the One Ring to put a burden counter on the One Ring, and then draw a card for each burden counter on the One Ring. Pretty good if we're untapping it a bunch. Really, we're just using it to tap it to draw extra cards every turn. Nothing better than that, but it's still really fucking good. So there's a reason why it's like $1 bajillion. Growing Ranks. It's an enchantment for 2 and 2 hybrid green-white mana. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you populate. So just a way for us to crank out more golems every single turn. And on the same vein, we've got a Song of the World Soul. It's an enchantment for 2 and 2 white. Whenever you cast a spell, you populate. So another way for us to just churn out more golems, more and more golems. And then lastly, for our non-red cards that we're going to talk about, we've got Ovea, I don't know how to say that, Automech Artisan. So I have 1, 2, 4, 3 and a green. Legendary creature, Human Artificer. Each creature that's attacking one of your opponents has trample, so it's going to make our golems that are attacking, that are huge, get trample. Pretty good. And then you can pay 1 and tap her and put a creature or vehicle card from your hand onto the battlefield. We don't have any vehicles, but we do have a lot of creatures. and it says if you put an artifact onto the battlefield this way, you put 2+1/+1 counters on it. So it's a way for us to sneak in our big artifact creatures. Also a way for us to sneak in any of our other big creatures that we don't really want to pay for. A lot of the splicers are pretty expensive. So things like Maul Splicer and Darksteel Splicer cost 7 mana, but they make multiple golems when they hit the battlefield, which is pretty sweet. And it's a way for us to cheat them into play with Ovia, I have no idea. So it's a way for us to cheat those kind of expensive creatures into play, and then our even more expensive artifact creatures like Phyrexian Triniform and Triplicate Titan, and even Darksteel Sentinel, Bronze Golem, sticking any of those into play and then stuffing 2/1/1 counters on them as well seems pretty damn good. And then them getting trample with her in play when they attack, even better for us, right? All right, so now let's talk about some of the red cards that I want to add. I think probably the biggest reason why I wanted to add red into this deck specifically was for Bosch, Iron Golem. He's a 6/7 for 8 mana. It's a legendary artifact creature, Golem, so hell yeah, more Golems. He's got trample, and you can pay 3 and a red and sacrifice an artifact, and Bosch, Iron Golem deals damage equal to the sacrifice artifact's mana value to any target. Oh man, that's actually not as cool as I was thinking. I mean, he does let us sack off artifacts. He is a golem with trample. That's pretty sick. It's a way for us to sack off like our big artifacts like Titan, Triplicate Titan, and all that stuff. He doesn't let us sack our big golems to do much, our big golem tokens, because it deals damage equal to their mana value, which is going to be 0 for those. That part kind of blows. I didn't really think about that. Damn. I was thinking it was more like a fling. I don't know. I think I'm going to try Bosch anyway. I think just the fact that he's a big ass golem with trample is going to be good, and he's another fatty for us to put to the deck and potentially can be really good too. Another cool golem with red is Alibu, Ancient Witness. He's a 4/5 for 3, a red and a white. He's a legendary artifact creature golem. So other artifacts we control have haste, so he's going to give all of our golem tokens haste, which is pretty good, so we can swing with them right away. And whenever one or more artifact creatures we control attack, Alibu deals X damage to any target, and we scry X, where X is the number of tapped artifacts we control. So notably, Alibu doesn't have to attack itself to make that happen. It's just when we attack with an artifact creature, we're going to be making a bunch of tokens and attacking with them. And then he deals damage, and we scry X, where X is the number of tapped artifacts we control, not just artifact creatures or anything like that. So all of our artifacts, including our rocks and all of that fun stuff, is going to trigger Alibu and make him do a lot more damage. And we can point that damage directly at somebody's face if we want to, which is pretty damn spicy. Another fun thing in red for us is going to be Brass's Bounty. It's a sorcery for 6 and a red, and for each land we control, we make a treasure token. So more treasure tokens, more artifacts going to the graveyard, more triggers for Ich-Tekik. Feldon of the Third Path. I really like this card, and I've always tried to find a good home for it, and I'm hoping that this is it. He's a 2/3 for 1 and 2 red. It's a human artificer creature, and we can pay 2 and a red and tap him and create a token that's a copy of target creature card in our graveyard, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types, and it gains haste, and sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So if we have any artificers, any of the splicers that are in our graveyard, we can make token copies of them with Feldon. They're also artifacts, so when they enter play, they're going to make us golem tokens, and then we can swing with them, whatever, they're 1/1s for the most part, but then we sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. So we can continue to do the Feldon thing every single turn and hit the same creature card, right? Because as long as the Feldon doesn't exile it out of our graveyard or anything like that, so we can keep making splicers, keep making golem tokens, and then sacrificing those splicer tokens on the end step. And this makes the splicer tokens artifacts, so it's going to trigger Ich-Tekik. Pretty good. It seems really good on paper. I know it's a 3-drop that also costs 3 mana, and you have to tap it, so it's a little slow to get started, and then we have to have things in our graveyard, so he requires some setup that we're not really able to do on our own, because we're not like putting creatures into the graveyard specifically or whatever. So he's more of a mid to late game thing, and I don't know. I hope he's good. I really like Feldon. I think that card's super cool. We've also got a Boros Charm. It's an instant for a red and a white. and it has 3 different modes, and we have to choose one when we cast it. It can deal 4 damage to a player or planeswalker. Permanents we control gain indestructible till end of turn, which is really good, and target creature gains double strike till end of turn. 3 modes, all of them super relevant. So we can use Boros Charm to finish off somebody who's at low life. Definitely done that before. Giving our permanents indestructible till end of turn is great because it lets us avoid board wipes and stuff like that. And target creature gains double strike till end of turn can also just finish somebody off who, lets a big creature through or can't block a big creature or something like that, and we can kill them off with the Boros Charm and make it deal double damage. Also for red, I pulled out a Master Warcraft. I'm not sure if this card's going to make the cut, but I do really like it. It's kind of a fun one. It's an instant for 2 and 2 red-white hybrid mana. You cast the spell only before attackers are declared, and I choose which creatures attack this turn, and I choose which creatures block this turn, and how those creatures block. So it lets us, potentially avoid a turn where our opponents are going to alpha strike us, and we can make our opponents attack each other and kill off our opponents and make them not block and all of that stuff, and then swing in for the win. It can also be a thing where we have a bunch of huge creatures and there's a bunch of walls and stuff that we can't get through, so we can fire off a Master Warcraft and be like, all right, so none of your creatures block this turn, all of my creatures attack, and you die. Something like that. So it's just a way for us to get through roadblocks. I really like Master Warcraft. I hope it makes it into the deck. I think it will. Another fun red card for us is going to be Legion Loyalist. It's a 1/1 for 1 red. It's got haste and battalion. So whenever Legion Loyalist and at least 2 other creatures attack, creatures you control gain first strike and trample until end of turn and can't be blocked by creature tokens this turn. So it's a way for us to, push through damage if our opponents have a bunch of creature tokens, so it makes it so they can't be blocked by them. And giving all of our creatures trample and first strike till end of turn is pretty good. The only thing I don't really like about Legion Loyalist is he's just a 1/1. He doesn't protect himself at all. He doesn't have indestructible or anything like that, so we have to be really careful on where we attack with him. And late game, it's likely that it's going to be, just one swing with him and then that's it. So not a huge fan of that part, but we'll figure it out. Maybe he'll make it, maybe he won't. One card I'm really excited about is Cabaretti Confluence. It's a sorcery for 3, a red, a white, and a green mana, and you can choose 3 of the modes, and you can choose the same mode more than once. So you can create a token that's a copy of target creature you control. It gains haste and sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. You can exile target artifact or enchantment. And it has creatures target player controls get +1/+1 and gain first strike till end of turn. The part I really like about it is making a token that's a copy of target creature you control. So letting us copy all of our splicers. The really, really fun part with it is going to be if we have a precursor golem out. So it says whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell, if that spell targets only a single golem, that player copies the spell for each other golem that spell could target, and each copy targets a different one of those golems. So if we have a Cabaretti Confluence and we choose to create a token that's a copy of target creature we control, and we do it all at one specific golem to make 3 copies of it, we're going to copy it for each other golem we control and create 3 copies of every golem we have on the battlefield, which is going to be awesome. And then they gain haste and we sacrifice them at the next end step. So that'll be artifacts going to the graveyard with Ich-Tekik. I hope that happens. I want that to happen so badly. Mage Slayer could be pretty cool. It's an equipment for 1, a red, and a green, and whenever the equipped creature attacks, it deals damage equal to its power to defending player. So we do make our creatures huge. It's a way for our creature to swing in and brain our opponent, and then maybe brain them again, potentially. If it has trample or something like that, it's going to make dealing extra damage into our opponent pretty easy there. And if they can't even block it, it's like giving it double strike. But it's free damage when we swing with the creature. I also pulled out a Gruul War Chant. It's an enchantment for 2, a red, and a green. It's each attacking creature we control gets +1/+0 and can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures, which is Menace, which is pretty good. Makes it harder for people to block all of our golem tokens. And lastly, I pulled out a Dire Strain Rampage. It's a sorcery for 1, a red, and a green, and it can destroy target artifact, enchantment, or land, and if a land was destroyed this way, its controller may search their library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Otherwise, its controller may search their library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield tapped, and shuffle. And it has flashback for 3, a red, and a green. So the reason why I pulled out Dire Strain Rampage, 1, it kind of apologizes for blowing up somebody's artifact or enchantment, which is kind of nice. Sometimes people look at that and say, oh, thanks, I mean, yeah, you blew my thing up and it was a problem, but you gave me a thing afterwards, which is nice. Cool, whatever. We can also use it to blow up our own land and go get 2 lands. It's like a Harrow for us, potentially. It can also get rid of a problem land that our opponents have. Like I was saying earlier, Glacial Chasm has been an issue recently that I've run into with decks that want to attack. So a way to get rid of problem lands, artifacts, or enchantments our opponents control, and potentially even ramp ourselves is pretty cool. So the only thing I particularly don't like about Dire Strain Rampage is it's a sorcery, but we can get over that, right? That'll be fine. All right, so I have 11 basics of each type, so we can pare that down a little bit. We've got 8 slots for non-basics. So we are going to slap in these temple cards because I do like those. The deck definitely runs green heavy, so we'll probably keep most of our forests. Say maybe drop 3 forests, go down to 8, and then we can drop 3 or 4 plain. There's 8 more card slots we've got. We've got 2 more non-basics, which leaves us 6 here, and we had 6 plains, right? I don't know if 6 mountains is correct. Maybe that's not right. We'll keep 1 more plain. We'll keep 7 mountains, or 7 plains, sorry, and put in 5 mountains. I think that's okay. With the dual lands that we're putting in, and some of the mana rocks that we've already got, and ones that we're adding in that make more red mana, I think that'll give us enough sources. And with like the basic land ramp that we're going to have and all of that fun stuff, I think that'll be enough. And like any good commander player, I made sure all of my basic lands match artwork. And we'll count red sources too, just to make sure that's enough. So we've got 5 mountains and then 13 red sources. That's plenty. Yeah, we'll be all right. Shouldn't have any issues making colored mana. We definitely want to add in these guys for some more ramp. We can pull out the 2 rocks here, put in those rocks. Nice little trade right across. And it's 2 rocks that don't come into play tapped, which is also nice. The only shitty part about them is we're pulling out white bordered cards to put in black bordered cards. Ew. All right, so we've got a lot of cards that we want to put in the deck and not very many that we have taken out so far. So I think first off, I am not going to run the Legion Loyalist just because, you know, he doesn't protect himself and that kind of stuff. I got 7 cards here. We really got to find something else. Let's see, what else should we take out of here? I was kind of thinking about taking out Inspiring Leader and Tempered Steel. They just kind of feel more like win more cards. I'm not sure how much I really like both of those in there. I think I would rather make something that puts more tokens into play or is more gas. The reason why I'm thinking about taking these out too is they just don't do anything by themselves, right? They only take what we already have in play and make it better. They don't put anything into play and like further our game plan, if that makes sense. But like things like Primal Vigor that, you know, still deal with the tokens that we're making, but it makes more tokens. So yes, it doesn't do anything on its own, but the thing that it does do furthers our game plan better than Tempered Steel. Like, I would rather have 2 3/3 golems than 1 3/3 golem that gets +2/+2. Okay, let's go count ramp stuff we got right now. I'm not counting Bootlegger Stash as a ramp spell. 1, it costs 6 mana, so it's not going to help us till we have already ramped at least a little bit. And it potentially doesn't actually ramp us. It just makes treasure tokens, which, I mean, it can stick around and ramp us a little bit later, but I'm not going to count it for us as ramp spells. Ramp spells, I want us to help us early game, and Bootlegger Stash does not help us early game. Smothering Tithe I will count as a ramp spell because it only costs 4, so it can come down a little bit early, way earlier than Bootlegger Stash, and it's gonna pretty much guaranteed make us at least 2 treasure tokens a turn cycle. Very rarely are people gonna pay mana for the Smothering Tithe. At least in my play group, it doesn't happen that often. But with this deck, with Ich-Tekik, people might be more willing to pay the mana. I don't know. Find out. I don't think I've ever stuck a Smothering Tithe in play with this deck yet, so we'll see. Okay, yeah. We've got 15 ramp spells. Without this Talisman of Unity, I think we can pull that out too and be just fine. I think we can take out Full Flowering. It's a one-shot. It's a double X spell, which I'm not a huge fan of. And we can replace it with something like Song of the World Soul or Growing Ranks. Both of those I think would be a little bit better than Full Flowering, just because it's more of a continuous effect. I think Unexpectedly Absent is another card that I'm not a huge fan of. The problem I have with it is it's a removal spell, but it doesn't actually get rid of the card. It just puts it into our opponent's library. They can search it out or draw it again. It's not removal in the way that I want it to be removal. Maybe the Tough Cookie can come out. We can drop that. It's kind of a not great creature. Mostly a filler card for golems. Okay. I think that's probably where we're at for some easy cuts. How many do we have now? 14 cards to come out. Let's just take these out. We're committed. Okay, remove those. How many lands are we rolling here? 35 lands and 15 ramp, so 50 sources of mana in the deck, which is a lot. We do have some pretty big beefy spells, a couple 9-cast creatures, even potentially another 8 mana creature with Bosch. So I think that's okay, honestly. I think that means with all of that ramp, we can drop the Dire Strained Rampage, which I like that card. I want to find a home for it that I like more than this. We really need to be looking at red cards right now because we just added red into the deck and we don't have any red cards in the deck currently. So Oliboo, I think for sure makes the cut. It's a good golem. He's a good golem. Gives all our golems haste. I really want Cabaret Confluence to target Precursor Golem in play. I think that's hilarious. I think Master Warcraft is too good, and Boros Charm. I really want Felden to work. Let's just leave up those 5 right now. I have 9 slots left. 14 cards, so we gotta cut 5 out of here. We definitely need more card draw, so I know this Elemental Bond is going to go in for sure. I think the Growing Rights should also go in, because I think flipping the Growing Rights is not going to be an issue whatsoever. So that might also, I mean, we can cut a land, go down to 34. That's not a terrible choice right now, to be honest. Really, the only reason why we would use Grasslands is to fix the color of mana, and I think we have enough ramp in other areas where the color isn't going to be an issue. So I'm going to pull out the Grasslands to give us another slot to play with. So now we've got 10. Mage Slayer, while really cool, doesn't quite make the cut for what we want. It doesn't make golems or anything. It just makes our attacking creatures better, which is good, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it quite fits what we're doing with the deck. I think in the same vein, Gruul Warchant does the same thing, but it makes all of our attacking creatures good instead of just one of them, which is why I like it a little bit better. We're gonna fuck someone's day up with a fling. I can feel that. I feel it in my bones. We've also got Mimic Vat. Mimic Vat becomes a little bit better with Bosch and Fling in the deck, so Mimic Vat does seem a little bit better to me for the deck. Because we have so much ramp and a bunch of other ways to make tokens and stuff, let's take out Brass's Bounty. As cool as it is making a treasure token for each land we control, it does cost 7 mana, which is a lot, and doesn't further us in the same way that these other spells are going to do. It's just going to make us more treasures to sack off to Ich-Tekik to make what we have in play already better than it is. And 7 mana is a lot. I think Brass's Bounty is okay to go away. I think our Proxy One Ring for sure makes the cut. We need more card draw. This is very consistent card draw, and it's kind of hard for our opponents to deal with, so we can stick that there. I want the Elemental Bond for sure, because making our 3/3 golems is going to draw us cards, which is phenomenal. The Growing Rights, I think, also makes the cut, especially since we cut a land for it. Lashiel is going to give us a creature card every turn for the most part. I like the Lush Heal over the Colossal Majesty because it's a little more controllable. It's whenever one or more artifacts enter the battlefield under our control, we draw a card. The ability only triggers once each turn, whereas the Colossal Majesty draws us a card on our upkeep if we control a creature with power 4 or greater. The shitty part is going to be, too, that we have to make our golems a little bit bigger to trigger the Colossal Majesty, so it's not going to do anything early game for us. I think it can get cut. I like Momentous Fall. It can draw us a lot of cards and gain us some life if we need. Growing Ranks and this Song of the World Soul I think are pretty good for this deck. It kind of sucks that the growing Ranks could be bad for us too. Not bad necessarily, but like if we don't have a creature to populate with it, it does nothing and it only triggers on our upkeep, which kind of in the same vein as the Colossal Majesty, I think gives it the cut. Yeah, I think that's okay. Let's try this. And I mean, we can always keep the Growing Ranks in our back pocket if we decide that it is secretly good and we want it in the deck. So, looking at this hand is not terrible. We don't have any ramp, which kind of sucks, but that's okay. We do have a turn 2 play with the Soulless Jailer. We don't have a turn 3. None of our commanders cost 3 either, so we can't play those. It's okay, we can play a tapped land and do nothing. Not too terribly worried about it. So yeah, this is an okay hand. Let's keep this. Let's see how it goes. Draw for our turn, we got a mountain. So I think early game we should play a Temple of Abandon. Basically we want to see a not land on top. Oh, we got a Shamanic Revelation. That's not going to do much for us right now, or even in the near future, so I'm going to put it on the bottom. I think I would rather see another land or something like that than a Shamanic Revelation right now. So we'll untap, and we got another land, son of a bitch. We can, sure, early game, play this Fortified Village, and we'll show our opponents a forest that we have in our hand, so it comes into play untapped. And then we will tap it and tap both of our lands to play a Soulless Jailer, which is 0/4, and permanent cards in graveyards can't enter the battlefield, and players can't cast non-creature spells from graveyards or exile. Doesn't really affect us much. It'll affect our opponents, hopefully. Go to turn 3. And we got another 5-drop, but it's an Alley Boo. That's not bad. We are going to play this Jungle Shrine tapped because we don't have anything to do for 3 mana. And everything to do for 4 mana. So we kind of take a turn off here, which sucks, but it is what it is. Go to our 4th turn. We drew a Ginger Brute. Let's go ahead and play that forest that we showed everybody. Now we have 4 mana, and we have a couple different things we can do. We could play this Lodestone Golem. The reason why I don't think we should is it makes all non-artifact spells cost 1 more to cast, and pretty much everything else that we want to cast after this Lodestone Golem is a non-artifact, like this Master Splicer or Ich-Tekik on turn 5, which I think is the more pertinent one right now. So what I think we should be doing is, let's pay 4, play a Master Splicer, and when it comes into play, we make a Golem token, and then it gives Golem creatures we control +1/+1. So we have 2 Golems currently. We'll untap and go to turn 5. Ooh, we got a Tireless Provisioner. That's an interesting card right now. So we have a land we can play this turn and next turn. So potentially the Tireless Provisioner is going to make us 2 treasures if we play it this turn. We can set up for our turn 6 to play Ich-Tekik and then have 2 treasures ready to fire off and even get the Ginger Brute down. So it's another Golem that we have in play. I think I like the idea of setting up our turn a little bit better than just stuffing the Ich-Tekik into play this turn. So what we're going to do is pay 3 to play the Tireless Provisioner, and then we will play our land for the turn, which is going to be this mountain, and then we're going to make a treasure token, which will be this face down card, and then we can pay 1 mana to play a Ginger Brute, and we'll make the Ginger Brute unblockable except by creatures with haste and swing for 2 because he's a Golem. And that'll really teach our opponents a lesson. And we'll untap, go to our turn 6. Ooh, we drew a Metallic Mimic. So we can play a land, which will create another treasure token. So we have 2 of them. So what I'm debating on here in my head is playing the Metallic Mimic before the Ich-Tekik. If we do that, we're going to have to use one of our treasures to cast the Ich-Tekik, because we'll only have 4 mana left over after we pay the 2 for the Metallic Mimic. But the Metallic Mimic will make the golems that come into play off Ich-Tekik get an additional 1/1 counter, and any other golem that we play after it get an additional 1/1 counter. Then the Metallic Mimic will also get a 1/1 counter for when if we sacrifice off that last treasure token. Options. I think it might be better to actually put the Metallic Mimic into play first, because sacrificing off the treasure tokens, it's going to get the same number of counters on the golems created by Ich-Tekik first. But see, if we play the Ich-Tekik first, these golems are going to get more counters on them. I think playing the Metallic Mimic second actually nets us more 1/1 counters for the Ich-Tekik triggers. Exactly. So let's go 5. We'll play Ich-Tekik. We'll make another golem here. So we have 2 golems. And then we'll pay 1 and sack off a treasure token. All of our golems are going to get +1/+1 counters, and we're going to make play a Metallic Mimic, naming golem. So all of our golems are going to enter with an additional +1/+1 counter. We could fire off the treasure token to make the Ginger Brute unblockable and swing with it. Not sure that's a great move right now. We might want to keep it around just in case. Again, depends on the board state. So for right now, let's just untap and go to our next turn. Ooh, a Titan triplicate. That's interesting. So we've got 7 mana available. We can only play 1 spell this turn. Depending on where our opponents are at, maybe playing the Lodestone Golem would be good, so it costs them more mana to play things. It's also a golem that can get bigger. We've also got the Alibu, which we could play, which I think is probably the right move, especially depending on what's on the board. But Alibu gives all of our artifact creatures haste, which is nice. We're not making any artifact creatures this turn, but whenever 1 or more artifact creatures we control attack, Alibu deals X damage to any target, and we scry X, where X is the number of tapped artifacts we control. So let's fire off a mana to make the Ginger Brute unblockable for the most part, and then we can turn in sideways with, these guys are 5/5s because they have 1/1 counter here, and they get +1/+1 from the Splicer. And Alibu's a golem, so with the Metallic Mimic, it comes in with a +1/+1 counter on it, which is pretty cool. Grab some more counters here. He gives other artifact creatures haste, so he does not have haste himself. But we turn in, we've got 2, 3 tapped artifacts. So none of our lands are artifacts currently. Yeah, we don't have any artifact lands in this deck either. That's interesting. We might have to change that later. But so now with the Alibu trigger, we can shoot something for 3 and then scry 3, which is nice. Let's see what we got. Ooh, 2 lands and a generous gift. I think those are all going on the bottom. Don't want any of those right now. Ooh, a bronze golem. That's pretty fucking good. What we can do is play the bronze golem for 5. He'll get haste from the Alibu, and his power will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, potentially. We'll only have 1 mana left over. So again, we can only do 1 thing, which kind of sucks. And he gives all of our other artifacts ward 2, which I like. So let's go ahead and pay the 5 to cast the bronze golem. He'll come into play with a 1/1 counter on it. And then we'll give the Ginger Brute unblockable except by creatures with haste. And then we can swing in with these guys and these 5/5 golems, which will hopefully still be able to get in and not get riggedy wrecked. Then we've got an Alibu trigger for 4, so we can shoot something for 4, and we'll scry 4. None of these are really going to help us right now. The Ephemerate might be nice for like the Master Splicer or something, or even like Bruise Tarl. If we play Bruise Tarl, give something double strike and then Ephemerate it to give something else double strike. But I think right now, none of those really farther our board much. So we're going to put them all on the bottom. Actually, were any of those lands? We might leave a land on top, actually. So let's actually leave a plains on top of that scry. And the reason for that is if we draw this plains, we're going to have 7 lands. When we play the plains with the Tyler's Provisioner, we can make another treasure. And then with the treasure, the 2 treasures and the 7 mana from the lands, that's 9. So we can play the Titan triplicate and make a huge beater that has haste, flying, and trample, and vigilance, which is disgusting. It'll come into play with an additional 1/1 counter and all that fun stuff too. So yeah, we're going to do that. Tap, upkeep, draw. Hey, look, we drew a land. We're going to play that land. We're going to make a treasure token. We're going to crack both treasure tokens and pay 7 mana, which is going to put 2 more 1/1 counters on all of our golems. Oops. So we have 3 total on all of these guys right here. And this Metallic Mimic, which is also a golem, has 2. And then we're going to play this Titan triplicate, which has 0. Or no, we'll have 1 +1/+1 counter because he's a golem. And then we'll go to combat, and we're going to swing Titan triplicate, which has vigilance. These golem tokens, these guys, maybe not the Ginger Brute, just because it's not unblockable. But the Alley Boo's pretty big. He's a 7/8 currently, so not a lot's going to block that guy. And then these guys are 7/7s. Oh no, this guy's even bigger. Sorry, he's an 8/9 because he gets +1/+1 from the Master Splicer. So this Titan triplicate is a 10/11/11 with vigilance, flying, and trample. So yeah, swing in with all that stuff. Titan triplicate has vigilance, so he doesn't tap, but the Ali Boo trigger is going to deal 4 damage to something, and when you scry another 4. So we can leave Oivia on top. Ovea or Ovevavu. The Momentous Fall we talked about earlier, we can use it to sack off the Titan triplicate and draw a bunch of cards, which I really like. I'm going to stuff those to the bottom actually, and leave the Momentous Fall and Ovia on top in that order, just so we can do that next turn, and take that next turn now just for funsies and see how it goes for us. Hey, look, we drew a Momentous Fall. Let's Badoop. 4 mana, 2 of it green, to Momentous Fall the Triplicate Titan, so it'll die, go to the graveyard. That's an artifact going to the graveyard, which will put a 1/1 counter on all of this other stuff. When it dies, it makes 3 golems, so we'll make 3 golems, and then we're going to draw 11 cards and gain 11 life. Quite a few lands. That kind of sucks, but that's okay. We still have some mana left over, so we can play this Sun Petal Grove, which come into play untapped because we control a forest or a plains. We'll make a treasure token off of the Tireless Provisioners. So this is a pretty good rundown of how this deck is going to play out. For our next turn, I mean, we can slam down Ovia if we really want to. We have a treasure token currently that we could use to crack off to play the Wandering Wayfarer's Bauble, or hold it for a Cloud Shift in case we need it. Cloud Shifting, like our Master Splicer, can make another Golem token, which is nice. We can use it to save a creature if we need to, like Olibu or Ich-Tekik. We could use 1 to play the Wayfarer's Bauble, and then hold the other 2 mana up to Sundering Growth something, populate one of our tokens. Cloud Shift to blink something, like we said before. We are going to have to discard down to 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 10 cards in our hand. We do have a bunch of lands, so we can kind of ditch those. Pitch 3 lands, go down to 7. Still keeping the Exotic Orchard in our hand, so we have another land to play. I mean, we could also play Bruised Harl at some point too, giving one of our things double strike that's really big. Ooh, maybe we should have done that. No, yeah, I mean, we could have done that before we sacked off the Titan triplicate. That was huge. Giving it double strike and lifelink with Bruised Harl, swinging in with it, and then sacrificing it to draw a bunch of cards. That would have been pretty sick. That's not terrible. We don't have anything to do before turn 3, which kind of sucks. Whatever, we'll see how this goes. Yeah, it still kind of sucks. But we do have this Scry land, so we can look at the next card. Ooh, a Blade Splicer, which again doesn't give us anything to do until turn 3, but it is something. So actually, let's keep that on top. That'll be fine. Draw. Let's play this Clifftop Retreat tapped because we don't have anything better to do. Untap. Master Warcraft. We'll play a Forest. And let's go ahead and start off with a Blade Splicer, making a Golem token. And all of our Golems have First Strike. So it'll make him a good blocker for right now. So untap, draw. We got a Rampant Growth. That's not terrible either. Let's play this Mountain. So a couple things, we can play a 4th, or we can play a 4-drop. That'll make us another Golem. But we don't have any lands to play after that to get to the 5th mana. So what I'm thinking we need to do is we're going to pay 3. We're going to Harrow on our turn because of the Rampant Growth. So we can sack off this Mountain, go get 2 basics, put them into play. And notably, they come into play untapped because of how Harrow works. And then we can tap both of those to play a Rampant Growth to go get us another basic, which will be this Mountain that comes into play tapped. Double ramping on turn 4 is not bad. Let's untap. Keep draw. Ooh, a Maul Splicer. 6. We've got 6 mana. So we can't double up on anything. Man, our mana curve is really high. That might be something we need to look into as well. We don't really need to start turning sideways yet. We need to make our creatures bigger. We have no way to put artifacts into the graveyard reliably right now, so playing Ich-Tekik isn't going to get us a huge benefit, except just putting them into play. We don't have the 7 mana to play the Maul Splicer, otherwise that would be the one that I would want to do. But we've only got 6 mana. We should try to use as much of our mana as possible and be as efficient as possible with it, so let's go ahead and play Ich-Tekik. And that way we kind of keep more cards in our hand. So now we have 2 Golems. They both have First Strike, which will make blocking for us even better. Tap up, keep draw. We get a Momentous Fall. That is not bad to use. Can draw us more cards, which we kind of desperately need right now. So depending on the board state, if it's kind of a slow game, I would consider just playing out a Master Splicer to make our Golems a little bit bigger, or even the Sensor Splicer to put another Golem into play. Both of them will. The Master Splicer will make our Golems bigger, which will make our Momentous Fall a little bit better. But there's not really a lot of slow games in Commander anymore, so I think Momentous Falling one of our tokens isn't a bad option for us, and we'll gain 3 life and draw 3 cards. We did get another land, that's good. So now we're up to 7, and we have a Solemn and a Primal Vigor, so we can start doing multiple things in a turn. Well, no, not quite. Everything costs 4 mana or more. Jeebus. So much. And then that is an artifact going to a graveyard, so we will put a +1/+1 counter on these 2 idiots. Draw for our turn. Hey, we got another land. That's good. Now we can do double things. There we go. Now we're cooking with gas. Got to get up to 8 mana. So first things first, we're going to cast a Solemn to go get us another land. And then we're going to cast a Maul Splicer to get us another Golem token. And regular cut. Let's untap. We have another Golem token that does not have a +1/+1 counter on it. Draw for our turn. Oh man, that changes everything. Shit. So, Song of the World Soul, and I can't follow it up with another spell, which really sucks. So I want to play Song of the World Soul before I play anything else because it's going to populate every time I cast a spell, which is awesome. The problem is it costs 6 mana, which only leaves us with 3 mana left over, so I can't follow it up with a second spell after I cast the Song of the World Soul. And I really want to play Primal Vigor too. Damn. But what we can do is play the Primal Vigor and then play another 4-drop. Yeah, which I guess is Bruse or Master Warcraft, which isn't going to be a great drop right now. The Lodestone Golem is a thing, but again, it makes our stuff cost more too, which I don't like. So I think really what we should do now is play the Primal Vigor and then play the Bruse and give something Double Strike and Lifelink, probably this Golem token, and we'll crank in with that guy. Not a super strong turn, but it is good. And I really hope we draw another land. Yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. So now we can Magical Christmas Land, play this Song of the World Soul, and then pay 4 mana and say screw it and just cast the Lodestone Golem. And yeah, that'll make our stuff a little more expensive, but that's okay. And we're going to populate, and we're going to make a Golem token, and we're going to make 2 Golem tokens because of Primal Vigor. So that's pretty sick. So now we have 3 Golem tokens. And then we can crank in somewhere. Bruised Harl, if we want to attack with him, can give something Double Strike and Lifelink. Gain us a little bit more life. We got another land. That's okay. Play that land, which gives us, what, 11 mana? 11 mana. Everything in here is going to cost an extra 1. So we can actually play the Sensor Splicer and the Master Warcraft in the same turn if we want to, which will double populate for us. We don't have anything giving our tokens haste currently, but the Sensor Splicer will give them vigilance, which is pretty good. So we've got 5, 6 mana because it costs 1 more to play the Sensor Splicer. We get another Golem, and then we can go to combat and swing. Oh, we get another 2 Golems, sorry. Go to combat and swing. We can also Master Warcraft if we want to. I'm not sure that's a great move right now with what we have. I don't think we can Alpha Strike anybody. Our stuff's not quite big enough. But maybe we can use it on one of our opponent's turns and make them attack into each other and remove their creatures that way, which will give us a little bit more wiggle room. Another land, Tyler's Provisioner, sure, Ginger Brute, land, bronze. Really what I'm looking for here is some more card draw to keep us going. There was an Elemental Bond way down there. But yeah, it's going to play out pretty similar to that every time. And again, you know, it's a goldfish, so there's no real reason to expect it to actually play out that way, right? We've got opponents that are going to be doing stuff. I think a big part of this deck is going to be getting a draw engine online and using that to fuel the rest of the game, which might mean we need to add a tutor or something. Maybe an Enlightened tutor or an Idyllic tutor wouldn't be a bad include into the deck. Make sure we can grab that Elemental Bond and put it into play, because that's definitely something that we want to be doing for sure. Which, in fact, let me go grab that. Because the biggest problem I have with a lot of this stuff is you just run out of gas. And you need more cards all the time. And when you don't have that in the command zone, it can be really difficult to push through and continue to draw cards and continue to make game actions. So I think we're going to edit in an Idyllic tutor and an Enlightened tutor. They are basically going to be like our second and third copy of Elemental Bond. And we got to figure out what we're going to take out for them, but I think we can figure that out. I think Lashiel will come out. So he's not a guaranteed card draw, and we definitely saw plenty of turns where we weren't putting artifacts into play every turn, especially on that last game. As weird as it feels, I might take out the Ozolith. I think that's an okay drop as well. Just because we're not really controlling when our creatures die or anything like that. They might not even die, so the Ozolith could just come out and do fuck all for us, potentially. These guys for sure are going to be able to go grab us an artifact or an enchantment and put it into our hand, so we can then cast it later. And getting that Elemental Bond out, I think, is going to be really important. So we're not going to do another goldfish or anything like that. I think this is going to be the end of the video. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But most importantly, as always, just tell your friends. Find somebody who you think would like this, or like anything that I've done or made, or maybe even just like listening to my stupid voice talk about dumb magic cards. You guys have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.